Chapter 1654. Ha ha ha. Yiqing Luo has already been controlled by us dark forces. If we can't live, then all of you can forget about living too. Yiqing Luo, that pervert, she will absolutely avenge us dark forces, killing all of you bunch of young lads. Ha ha ha. What kind of feeling is it to be killed by someone you trust? Those few people from the dark forces who were still alive saw Yiqing Luo's state, and all of them ran towards her direction as though they were escaping for their lives. Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade used a dark secret method to seal the profound yin qi. The entire dark forces knew about this matter. At this moment, seeing Yiqing Luo actually laid her hands on their own brothers, they knew. This was absolutely because of the profound yin qi in Yiqing Luo's body. That also meant that Yiqing Luo was now one of them. With Yiqing Luo, that pervert, around, this bunch of young lads would definitely die. But those few people from the dark forces had just dashed in front of Yiqing Luo. They saw Yiqing Luo's fingertips dancing. Like an excited spirit, a red glow flashed past her slender fingertips. The glower flame fan stirred up thousands of waves as it struck towards those few people from the dark forces. Those people had barely escaped from the siege of those students after experiencing a narrow escape from death. At this moment, all their thoughts were on Yiqing Luo. Who would have expected that Yiqing Luo would actually make a move against them? Those few people from the dark forces had yet to react. Bursts of powerful profound energy had already landed on them. They were like numerous sharp blades that surged like the tide and devoured everything about them. They didn't even have time to make a sound. Those few people from the dark forces fell limply onto the ground. Blood spurted out and they lost their breath. The students stared at this scene as their faces alternated between green and white. They had clearly heard what the people from the Dark Coalition had just said. Yiqing Luo had already been controlled by the dark forces. That meant to say, Yiqing Luo would kill them? But why did Yiqing Luo kill those people from the dark forces? Die. Die. All of you must die. That hoarse voice was monotonous and emotionless. Yiqing Luo's eyes didn't have any radiance. His eyes were empty and cold as he stared forward. It seemed like he had really lost his mind. The faces of the students turned paler and paler. He wanted to escape. But there was a barrier set up here. They had no way out. Yiqing Luo. Devil class's students were filled with worry as they stared at Yiqing Luo's expressionless face, feeling heartache. They were burning with anxiety. But there was no way to awaken Yiqing Luo's consciousness. What should they do? What should he do? You can't do anything to your own brothers even if you've already been controlled. Suddenly, a deep and cold voice filled with dense murderous intent was heard from Yiqing Luo's back. Just as the voice rang out, a figure appeared out of nowhere. That figure was extremely fast. Bringing along an extremely turbulent profound qi, he directly attacked in the direction of the devil class students. Then let me personally deal with this group of people. As his voice fell, devil class's students only felt a gust of cold wind brushing against their faces. Then, a terrifying aura came crashing down from the sky. Oh no! Get out of the way. Chapter 1655. Yan Xiaoyi immediately activated the power of her profound jade heart. Releasing all of her profound energy, she opened up a protective barrier. Ha! A mere earth profound practitioner dares to block this sacred technique? Wolf Saint Technique sneered disdainfully, not putting Yan Xiaoyi's protective barrier in his eyes. The movements of his hands didn't stop at all. Thick profound energy, swift and fierce attacks. Xiaoyi. A panicked voice reverberated through the earth. Immediately, a figure was seen, rushing over. Following that figure's sprint, the surrounding air, suddenly, like flowing water, appeared with faint waves. Layer upon layer, slowly stacked higher. Just as Wolf Saint Technique's attack fell. Boom! That turbulent air, in a split second, turned into a huge wave, surging high up. The violent profound energy revealed a terrifying power that made one's heart tremble. Ah! With a scream, Wolf Saint Technique spat out a mouthful of blood. His body, under that wave of air, flew backwards, landing heavily on the ground. Wolf Saint Technique rolled a few times on the ground, finally crashing into a huge rock. The wound on his back that hadn't healed yet. And a new injury. Fresh blood instantly dyed the ground under Wolf Saint Technique. But at this moment, no one paid attention to the direction of Wolf Saint Technique. Everyone's gaze was focused on the Devil class students. In front of the Devil class students, a youth dressed in a green and white uniform, tightly hugging a slender girl. Both arms, tightly wrapped around her waist. That muscular body, slightly trembled. His entire body was emitting a terrifying aura. Who was that? Students from the Devil class? The students of the various academies were filled with curiosity. And Yen Xiaoyi, who was tightly hugged, at this moment, stiffened on the spot. Her body tensed up. Her breathing suddenly stopped. Between her nose, lingered that familiar scent that made her about to cry. Qiao Jin. It's Qiao Jin. He's back. Back to her side. Both hands, subconsciously wrapped around his waist. Bit by bit, tightened. Until, her body, completely rubbed into his embrace. Are you stupid? Whenever I'm not by your side, you do stupid things? However, this tenderness did not last for long. Yen Xiaoyi heard the man's angry voice. Qiao Jin pried Yen Xiaoyi's body apart, his eyes filled with rage as he glared at her fiercely. Who do you think you are? An impregnable fortress? You're only at the Earth Profound Realm, and you want to use your own body to fight the Wolf Saint Technique head-on? The more he spoke, the more furious his voice became. The slender fingers on Yen Xiaoyi's shoulder gradually increased their strength. Yen Xiaoyi furrowed her brows in pain as she sucked in a breath of cold air. This pain also caused Yen Xiaoyi's consciousness to gradually regain clarity. His rebuke. She heard it all. He felt that it was extremely ridiculous. Yen Xiaoyi's heart, which had been agitated because of Qiao Jin's return, gradually calmed down and calmed down. Qiao Jin did not return to her side. Qiao Jin did not belong to her. Closing her eyes, the expression on Yen Xiaoyi's face had already recovered its usual calmness. Whether I'm stupid or not, and what I want to do, has nothing to do with you. She looked up and met Qiao Jin's eyes. Maybe the timing of his appearance was too coincidental. Or maybe the current backlight was too coincidental. Qiao Jin's unprepossessing face was reflected in Yen Xiaoyi's pupils. He actually appeared to be extremely tall and handsome. That deep contour faintly revealed a suffocating handsomeness. She was stunned. Chapter 1656. After a while, Yen Xiaoyi retracted the absent-mindedness in her eyes. She despised herself in her heart. Even at this moment, she still had feelings for Qiao Jin. Obviously, that face totally did not fit her aesthetic standards. Obviously, she had already decided from the bottom of her heart not to have feelings for him. But the moment she saw Qiao Jin, her heart that had been quiet for a long time, messed up, completely messed up. Ever since that day, when Qiao Jin saw Shi Shanglan's investigation information, he was alone, as though he had vanished from the face of the earth. He left just like that. Had he ever thought about her feelings? Had he ever thought about the feelings of the students in Devil class? Even in the Flaming Lair, such a dangerous place, he had never appeared. Until now, when he finally appeared here. So, sorry, Qiao Jin looked at that pair of calm beautiful eyes, and a dull pain surged from the bottom of his heart. His reprimanding expression, the anger in his eyes, suddenly disappeared. His hands froze. He quickly let go of Yen Xiaoyi's waist. Then, he took a few steps back, widening the distance between them. When Qiao Jin's apology fell into Yen Xiaoyi's ears, it was like a sharp needle, fiercely stabbing into her heart. He couldn't wait to leave her side, not daring to have any contact with her. It was more like he was mocking her feelings for him, mocking that she hadn't fallen for him. She was really a fool. A complete and utter fool. This man, he had never loved you from the start, why bother? Really, why did you have to do this? Closing her eyes, she forced the tears that welled up in her eyes down. Yan Xiaoyi's breathing gradually calmed down. Following that, she opened her eyes again, her gaze calm. Why are you here? A large number of people from the dark forces are already rushing towards this direction. I followed the overlord here. Xiao Jin clenched his fists, trying his best to make his voice sound calm. He couldn't show a little. His heart ached because of Yan Xiaoyi's coldness. Yan Xiaoyi's alienation towards him. Wasn't this the result he wanted? He took a deep breath softly. Let's leave the flaming lair first. Not only this place, there are arrays set up. The entire flaming lair has signs of arrays. Dizun. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes lit up. Now was not the time to worry about love affairs. Yiqing Luo had yet to regain her senses. The overlord was here and he would definitely be able to awaken Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi raised her hand and pushed Xiao Jin away. His gaze swept across the surroundings. Sure enough, they saw a man in shimmering purple clothes, who looked like a banished immortal, walking over quickly. Dmo Xian was extremely fast. Without any pause, he headed straight towards Yiqing Luo's direction. But before he was able to stretch out his hand and pull Yiqing Luo into his embrace. When he met with Yiqing Luo's chilly eyes, his footsteps slowly came to a halt. He and Yiqing Luo stood face to face. Their eyes met. No one spoke. Master Dizun. Qing Luo has lost her senses and only you can wake her up. Yan Xiaoyi said anxiously. The following words were stuck in his throat. She saw that behind Dmo Xian, there was a jade-green figure following closely behind. Wind chimes. Feng Ling was actually following beside Dmo Xian. Recalling that not long ago, this Feng Ling brought along the Imperial Palace's granny to kill Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi was extremely hostile towards Feng Ling. The enchantment here, only Feng Ling can break it. Dmo Xian's gaze was still on Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi blinked. The overlord was explaining to her. Chapter 1657. Hearing that extremely calm explanation, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. The cold glint in her eyes wavered for a moment. By her ears, Dmo Xian's explanation seemed to be reverberating. He directly called Feng Ling by her name. It wasn't like before, calling her Xiao Ling intimately. Was it because the reason why the Imperial Palace's granny wanted to kill her? This sweet throbbing didn't last for too long. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly thumped. Ah, Xian he. Why was he here? He was here. Would he stop her plan? Ah, Xian definitely wouldn't bear for her to take the risk. If he knew her decision, he would definitely stop her. No. No way, she couldn't let Ah Xian see her abnormality. Overlord, those unimportant people are not important. What's important is. Yan Xiaoyi's vision returned to Yiqing Luo. The dark forces said that Qing Luo had already been controlled by the dark forces. If we don't wake her up, we won't be able to control her. Hearing Yan Xiaoyi's anxious words, Yiqing Luo had a feeling of King that husky. She wanted to cry but no tears came out. She knew that Yan Xiaoyi was worried about her. Worried from the bottom of her bones. But could she not let Dmo Xian put his attention on her at this moment? She couldn't let go of such a good opportunity. Just at this moment, Gue Wu, Zhou Mo, and 100 over elders from the main academy rushed over. Seeing the bloody scene and the various academies' students covered in blood, they all had a fright. Momentarily, the entire blazing flame nest fell into chaos. This was the chance. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly as she took a deep look at Dmo Xian's direction. Suddenly, she turned around and leapt. That slender figure swiftly merged into the air and disappeared. Devil class's students chased up to her. Madam Qing Luo. You won't be able to catch up, stay here and cooperate with the main academy's investigation. DMO Xian's long peach blossom eyes squinted slightly. A chilly intent flashed in his eyes. I'll go. His words had just ended when his sleeve was tugged by someone. Fengling's timid face appeared in his eyes. Brother D, I. Her words had yet to leave her mouth. DMO Xian had already flung Fengling's hand away in extreme disgust. There was a cold glint in his eyes. Fengling, there are many things that I don't say, but it doesn't mean that I don't know. Your aura is on the dark forces barrier. You were the one who set it up. Windling's face turned pale. Her delicate body trembled slightly. Beiyuan. DMO Xian's voice was tense and cold. A black figure appeared from the darkness. Tang Beiyuan stood respectfully beside DMO Xian. Bring Fengling back to the imperial palace and guard her strictly. Without my orders, no one is allowed to get close to her. DMO Xian said coldly. After a pause, his gaze turned slightly cold. Including Grandma. Yes. Tang Beiyuan's expression was cold and stern. Once he said that one word, he suddenly brought out a chain from his sleeves, and without another word, he bound Fengling tightly. Those were profound ice shackles. It was a chain made of indestructible ice. There was no way to untie this chain at all. Fengling immediately panicked. With a sobbing tone, she shouted pitifully, Brother D, but Tang Beiyuan didn't give Fengling a chance to continue speaking. Holding the end of the chain, she hung Fengling and flew out of the blazing flame nest. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she searched for the fluctuation in the air and stopped her counter-detection of Pharaoh He's position. Maintain your murderous state and be a bit crazier. Old Man Sung reminded. Yiqing Luo's reaction was extremely quick. Pharaoh He was hiding in the dark and wanted to use a secret technique to test if her profound heart jade had really been contaminated by the profound Yin Qi. She stopped in her tracks. His entire body suddenly released an extremely strong murderous aura. A pair of murderous eyes fiercely swept across the surroundings. She raised her hands, clenched fists, and swung at the air. It seemed extremely crazy. Kill. I want to kill him. Kill all of you, kill all of you. Yiqing Luo was like a headless fly, spinning crazily on the same spot. Pharaoh He who was in the dark saw Yiqing Luo's crazy performance and glanced at Wolf Saint technique complacently. How is it? Are you convinced? Wolf Saint technique pursed his lips tightly. Chapter 1659. Yiqing Luo's heart was on the verge of collapsing. In order to sneak into the dark forces, she really put in a lot of effort. She could even act the role of a crazy lady. This acting skill was comparable to those movie queens. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but praise herself. Just as Yiqing Luo was cursing in her heart, her face was still maintaining a crazy state. Suddenly, her ears twitched. Her heart constricted. It was Ah Xian. He had indeed caught up. Damn Pharaoh He. Where on earth were they hiding at? She had already acted so well but still refused to show herself. If DMO Xian discovered her, her plan to sneak into the dark forces would fail. Perhaps the heavens had heard Yiqing Luo's wailing. Or perhaps Pharaoh He had also sensed DMO Xian's approach. Just as DMO Xian's presence was getting closer, Yiqing Luo only felt her body being sucked towards a direction by an extremely strong suction force. Following that, she was grabbed tightly by a strong palm. A thick and nauseating profound Yin Qi lingered around her nose. Yiqing Luo's eyes shone. It was Pharaoh He. You really pulled this slut over. Wolf Saint Magic's tone didn't conceal his disgust towards Yiqing Luo. Pharaoh He slanted a glance at him sarcastically. Only trash like you would worry about this and that. This Pharaoh's secret method has never failed before. The holy wolf technique was just lip service. In his heart, he already believed it a little. He moved his mouth and finally spat out a few words, "Let's go back." Pharaoh he didn't continue arguing with Wolf Saint Magic. His fingers formed a hand seal as he swiftly recited a string of incantations. Yi Qing Luo's 4 limbs were weak as she hung on Pharaoh he's hand. She suddenly felt her body shaking violently. Her vision turned black. When there was light again, Yi Qing Luo discovered that she was already at the entrance of a huge palace. At the entrance of the palace, 2 guards dressed in black cloaks immediately bowed respectfully when they saw them, Wolf Saint Magic, Pharaoh he. And they had just returned to the Dark Force's old nest. Pharaoh he casually threw the heavily injured Wolf Saint Law to the ground. The 2 dark guards had long been accustomed to the open and secret fights between the Pharaoh and the elders. One of them stepped forward and helped the wolf up. "Go get a doctor." Wolf Saint Law was quickly carried away. Whereas Yi Qing Luo was dragged by Pharaoh he as they walked directly into this luxurious palace. As one of the 4 great pharaohs of the Dark Faction, Pharaoh he enjoyed great prestige in the Dark Faction. Along the way, they greeted Pharaoh Crane respectfully. No one even placed their sights on Yi Qing Luo. After walking for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they finally stopped in front of a courtyard. Yi Qing Luo looked at the signboard on the courtyard. A row of words were outlined in black light, Crane Palace. Crane Palace? In other words, this was Pharaoh he's palace? Yi Qing Luo's vision had memorized all the details of the palace's surroundings into her mind. Perhaps it was because he was too confident in his secret technique. Pharaoh he didn't doubt Yi Qing Luo at all. He shut Yi Qing Luo in a secluded little room in the Crane Palace and used a curse to lock the door tightly before leaving in a hurry. Dark Forces territory, Yi Qing Luo didn't dare to let her guard down just because Pharaoh he had left. Who knew if Pharaoh he was trying to test her again? Yi Qing Luo had been on high alert, maintaining the state of being controlled by him. Her nerves were stretched taut, not daring to relax. Chapter 1660. Yi Qing Luo calculated the time in her heart. Close to 6 hours had passed. It should be night time now. She didn't know if it was because of the curse that Pharaoh he had set on the door. Not a single sound could be heard from the surroundings of this small room. The surrounding was so quiet that it was a little scary. Yi Qing Luo had been maintaining a battle state in the blazing flame nest for this period of time. Yi Qing Luo was already mentally exhausted. After a long time, Yi Qing Luo felt her eyelids getting heavier. Not long after, she fell into a deep sleep. But after Yi Qing Luo fell into a deep sleep, it was just a few breaths' time. Only to see the tightly shut door slowly opening. The person who entered the room was an extremely beautiful lady. That lady's vision was immediately fixed on the young lady's face who was sitting by the bed with her eyes closed. After seeing the young lady's stunning face clearly, the lady's pupils shot out a biting cold hatred. Yi Qing Luo. Ah die, don't hurt my puppet. Pharaoh he followed closely behind and stood in front of the beautiful lady. He held the lady's soft and fair hand as he stared fiercely at the person at the door, Lang Wastrel. It said that this old man's secret art will absolutely not have any problems. Why must you waste my knockout drug? You only know how to be suspicious all day, no wonder you're unable to break through to the profound grade. Wolf Saint Magic sat on a wooden wheeled chair and behind him was a black-robed, slightly pale-looking Yi Qing Qian. Wolf Saint Magic entered the room and his gaze fell onto Yi Qing Luo. After ascertaining that Yi Qing Luo had indeed fallen into a deep sleep, Wolf Saint Magic then raised his malicious eyes and looked coldly at Pharaoh. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's because of your arrogance that led to the failure of this mission. Isn't the failure all because of you? Pharaoh harumphed coldly. If it wasn't for that troublemaker, how would the spirit assimilation array be destroyed? Yi Qing Qian was criticized and her body shrank slightly as she lowered her eyelids, not daring to say a word. Wolf Saint Magic patted the back of her hand lightly as his gaze turned cold. The spirit assimilation array was destroyed because there's a problem with your elder's ability. Just one Yi Qing Luo. completely messed up the plan which we had prepared for several months, heh? You! Pharaoh, he was exasperated. He raised his hand and was about to rush forward to beat the wolf saint technique. All right. How old are the two of you? Every time you see each other, you won't let go. Are we still going to talk about business? The butterfly saintess couldn't take it anymore. She frowned and her beautiful face was filled with annoyance. The butterfly sacred technique shook off Pharaoh his hand and walked out of the room while swaying her slender waist. Pharaoh he fiercely glared at Holy Wolf, then immediately put on a smile and followed behind Holy Butterfly. Good, good, good. Ah, die, I won't argue with that old man. Let's talk business, talk business. Wolf Saint Technique, who was still in the room, narrowed his malicious eyes as his gaze stopped on Yiqing Luo for some time. He then lightly patted her hand. Let's go. Yiqing Qian responded obediently. As she pushed the Wolf Saint Technique away, Yiqing Qian glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo's direction. In her beautiful eyes, there was a trace of hatred and ruthlessness. She pushed the holy wolf out of the room. The door slowly closed again. In the room, it was silent once again. After a moment of silence, the young lady, who was originally leaning against the side of the bed and in deep sleep, her eyelashes fluttered slightly. Tightly, she opened her eyes. Chapter 1661. Yiqing Luo herself was an alchemist. She was extremely sensitive towards the smell of medicinal herbs. The moment the drowsiness hit her, Yiqing Luo realized that someone had drugged her. Hence, she beat them at their own game and pretended to fall asleep. From Wolf Saint Dharma and Pharaoh he's words. They must have something important to deal with. Or perhaps they needed to discuss. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to drug her who was already controlled by him. There were at least 5 people who entered the room. She heard Wolf Saint Dharma and Pharaoh he's voices. And 1 Butterfly Saint Dharma. And 1 Yiqing Jian. And the last person. Who was he? From the start till the end, that person had not spoken a single word. She remained silent for some time as she sensed that there wasn't any fluctuation in the surrounding air. She then quietly got up and slowly walked to the door. The last people to leave were Wolf Saint Dharma and Yiqing Jian. There wasn't any incantation on this room door. Yiqing Luo easily opened the room door. What entered her eyes was an extremely dark long corridor. A few voices were heard from the next room. Yiqing Luo looked around to ascertain that there wasn't anyone guarding this long corridor. She silently recited the secret method which she had memorized in her heart. Her figure flashed in a blink of an eye. She had already silently appeared at the door of the next room. This was a blink movement secret method. It was extremely different from her own footwork. Blink movement's secret method could achieve instantaneous movement under the condition of no aura fluctuation. And her set of footwork relied on one word, fast. The faster her footwork, the more violent the turbulence in the air. The group of people in the next room were all well-known figures from the dark forces. Any fluctuation in the air was unable to escape their senses. Yiqing Luo didn't dare to take the risk. Using the blink movement secret method, as long as the timing was stable, no one would discover it. Then no one would discover it. Nearing the door, she could clearly hear Wolf Saint Dharma's angry voice coming from the room. Trash, this plan was planned by me and that Heavenly Academy's trash director 2 months ago. For this plan, how much manpower and resources have I wasted? My Wolf Saint Dharma's forces have been annihilated. Wolf Saint Dharma slammed the table heavily. This is a foolproof plan. If it succeeds, we can escape completely. If it wasn't for the fact that your elders' party was so useless and couldn't even protect a formation, would this plan have failed? Do you still want to push all the blame to me? Useless Crane, let me tell you. The failure of the plan is a problem of your elders' society's ability. It has nothing to do with me. Bang, bang, bang. There was the sound of things being rummaged through. Yi Qing Luo made use of that explosion and her fingers moved slightly, opening that tightly shut window. Through the gap. Yi Qing Luo saw Pharaoh. He overturned the table and pointed angrily at the wolf saint technique. This Pharaoh has exhausted all my energy to save you from Yi Qing Luo's hands. Don't you dare to push all the blame for the failure of the plan on this Pharaoh. Lang Shengfa's face instantly turned ashen. His sinister eyes stared coldly at Pharaoh. His eyes filled with killing intent. Help. This word completely provoked the wolf saint technique. Especially to save him from that slut Yi Qing Luo. Wasn't this indirectly saying that he wasn't even comparable to that silly lass Yi Qing Luo? Chapter 1662. Pharaoh. He had specially emphasized the words, 15 years old. Wolf Saint Magic's face darkened. His 5 fingers clenched the armrest of the wooden wheelchair, leaving a long mark. Pharaoh. You're wrong. Yi Qing Qian couldn't bear to see her lover get angry, so she caressed Wolf Saint Magic's chest and raised her beautiful eyes to look at Pharaoh. The moment she opened her mouth, Pharaoh stared at her in disgust. Who do you think you are? Just a slut who relies on spreading her legs to climb up. This Pharaoh and Saint Magic are talking. Do you have the right to interrupt? Saying that, he glanced at Wolf Saint Magic scornfully. You've been in the dark forces for such a long time, yet you still don't know the dark forces rules. This Pharaoh wants to see how long you can protect her. Yi Qing Qian pursed her red lips as she lowered her head with reddened eyes. Wolf Saint Magic frowned and reached out to hold Yi Qing Qian's hand. Trash. Do you only know how to shoot at women now? Enough. Both of you, shut up. The beautiful lady sitting in the corner stood up irritably, quarreling over and over again. Just a few words. Is there any meaning in quarreling? Die, don't be angry, I won't talk anymore. Pharaoh. He immediately came forward attentively. Butterfly Saint Magic glanced coldly at Pharaoh. He then looked at Wolf Saint Magic. His lordship's seal is only lacking the last 2 hurdles before the seal can be completely lifted. Speaking of his lordship. The flames between Wolf Saint Magic and Pharaoh were restrained. This time the plan to absorb a large number of souls has failed. The day of his lordship's lifting will be delayed for a period of time. Butterfly Saint Magic's words made the room fall into silence. This failure was not only about not being able to obtain a large number of souls. It had also completely exposed the dark forces' motive in Nirvana Realm. Nirvana Realm would also raise their vigilance and think of ways to resist the dark forces' attack. It would not be as easy as before for them to obtain a large number of clean souls of young cultivators. No matter which one of you wants to get away or push the blame to someone, when his lordship regains consciousness, you will all accept his lordship's punishment. The Butterfly Saint technique looked at the 2 of them. So, it's useless for the 2 of you to push the blame to each other. Pharaoh. He nodded repeatedly and answered yes. Anyone could tell that he was interested in the sacred butterfly technique from his attentive manner. The Wolf Saint lowered his head and did not refute. He did not refute, which meant that he agreed with the Butterfly Saint technique. Instead of debating whether it's right or wrong, why don't we carefully think about the cause and effect? Think clearly about why the soul assimilating formation failed. Suddenly, a clear voice that was as gentle as the wind resounded in the room. That voice entered Yi Qing Luo's ears. Yi Qing Luo's body instantly stiffened. A trace of astonishment flashed through her eyes. She focused her gaze and looked through the gap again, searching for the figure of the person who spoke. Sure enough, beside the sacred butterfly technique sat a man in a brown robe woven with gold. The man's face was like jade, and the corners of his mouth hooked into a cordial smile. He looked very much like a graceful young master. That face. Yi Qing Luo was no stranger to it. Shi Clan's young master, Shi Shanglan. Yan Xiaoyi's fiancé. It was actually him. He was indeed related to the dark forces. He got close to Yan Xiaoyi indeed with ill intentions. Earlier in the room where she was locked up, the 5th person that she sensed was Shi Shanglan. What was the relationship between him and the dark forces? Chapter 1663. Young master, she is right. Rather than arguing about right or wrong, why don't we find out the reason why our plan failed? The anger on Butterfly Saint Mage's face was immediately replaced by a smile. Her eyes were filled with affection as she looked at Shi Shanglan coquettishly. But Shi Shanglan didn't show any signs of being moved by her goodwill. Shi Shanglan's face was still gentle like water. The smile on his lips was distant but not impolite. Pharaoh He's face sunk slightly and revealed some displeasure. But he didn't flare up like how he did with Wolf Saint Mage. Instead, he suppressed his anger and echoed Shi Shanglan's words. Young master, she's words are reasonable. I can't be bothered to argue with that old man. This scene made Yiqing Luo, who was hiding in the corner to eavesdrop, felt slightly surprised. Weren't the dark forces divided into two factions? The Lord, who was also the King of Darkness, was the leader. Then there was the Guardian and Elder factions. Above the Guardian and Elder factions were the Saint Mage and Pharaoh. Yiqing Luo could see clearly how arrogant Pharaoh He was in the dark forces. It could be said that Pharaoh He was second only to one and above everyone else in the dark forces. His attitude towards Shi Shanglan was obviously respectful. Pharaoh He admired Butterfly Saint Mage. And Butterfly Saint Mage gave such an obvious, suggestive look to Shi Shanglan. Pharaoh He was actually indifferent. It showed that Pharaoh He didn't dare to become enemies with Shi Shanglan. What was Shi Shanglan's identity? Even Pharaoh He was afraid of him. The atmosphere in the house eased up a lot because of Shi Shanglan's words. Wolf Saint Mage remained silent for a long time before he spoke. Speaking of the reason why we failed, it made me think of something. His sinister eyes looked at Pharaoh He. Trash He, do you still remember what you swore when you set up the soul assimilation array? Old Wolf, do you still want to quarrel with me? Pharaoh He's face turned cold as he stared back at Wolf Saint Mage angrily. The Wolf Shengfa looked at him and said indifferently, you said that once the soul assimilating array is set up, no one in the Nirvana realm can destroy the formation eye of the soul assimilating array, so our people don't need to specially guard the formation eye. Otherwise, the location of the formation eye will be exposed. F***CK. Wolf trash. Do you have to King go against me? Come on. I'll accompany you. Pharaoh He rushed toward the Wolf Saint Law furiously. Stop right now. The butterfly sacred technique reached out and grabbed Pharaoh Crane's collar, forcefully pulling him into the chair. You are not allowed to speak without my permission. Pharaoh Crane's face turned red. But looking at the serious expression on the butterfly saint technique's face, he could not help but shut his mouth. The butterfly sacred technique looked at the wolf sacred technique. He is right. The soul assimilating array is an ancient dark secret technique, a sinister technique that is not tolerated by the heavenly Tao. In a lower realm like the Nirvana realm, no one would know the method to destroy the array. She pondered for a moment, and a cold glint appeared in her beautiful eyes. Even if we find the eye of the formation, no one knows how to destroy it. What Wolf Saint technique means is, there are people from the lower realm helping Yiqing Luo. Shi Shanglan could tell what Wolf Saint technique was implying. As soon as these words came out, the four of them exchanged glances, and their faces instantly turned pale. Indeed. If there were no people from the lower realm helping Yiqing Luo, how would Yiqing Luo know how to use the blood of the caster to extinguish the array eye? If it wasn't for the fact that the people from the lower realm had told Yiqing Luo the method to destroy the array, how was it possible for Yiqing Luo to destroy this array so easily? Chapter 1664. Shi Shanglan's expression instantly turned grave. His handsome brows frowned slightly. If there's no one from the lower realm to teach her, she shouldn't be able to find the location of the array eye. He paused for a moment as his gentle eyes swept past the few people in the room. That gaze was as gentle as the wind. However, the few of them felt an extremely cold glint in their eyes. That kind of chill that emanated from the bones. It made the few of them feel a thump in their hearts. Wolf Saint Law's concerns, I will personally investigate clearly. If there's really someone from the lower realm around Yiqing Luo, I will return to the island and invite father to leave the island. Upon hearing Shi Shanglan's words, their faces instantly revealed a joyous expression. With young Master Shi's help, this matter will definitely be settled very quickly. Butterfly St. Law's eyes were filled with affection and admiration. Pharaoh he looked at Butterfly St. Law's expression and shifted his gaze away unhappily. He clenched his fists and eased the tense expression on his face as he gave a flattering smile. Yes, 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 young Master Shi is willing to help. Next time, our plan will definitely succeed. Butterfly St. Law snorted lightly as her tone couldn't conceal her disgust. Yiqing Luo, that little slut, the speed of her advancement is so fast, it must be because of the person behind her. As long as we get rid of that person, what kind of waves can that little slut create? The few of them complimented again. Yiqing Luo, who was squatting at the corner, frowned tightly. Shi Shanglan addressed himself as young master earlier. What young master was referring to? The reason why these few dark forces leaders were so respectful towards Shi Shanglan. It was probably because of the father behind Shi Shanglan. What was Shi Shanglan's identity? Just as Yiqing Luo was deep in thought. In the room, Yiqing Jian, who had been silent all this while, opened her mouth softly. What if the person behind Yiqing Luo is Dmo Xian? The few people's compliments stopped abruptly. Several pairs of eyes turned towards Yiqing Jian in unison. Wolf St. Law also glanced sideways at Yiqing Jian, who was standing beside him, as he frowned, as though he was annoyed with her for opening her mouth. Yiqing Qian faced their gazes and her expression remained unchanged. Her red lips curled upwards as a smile curled up as she spoke in a warm voice. Rumor has it that Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian from the Imperial Palace have an intimate relationship. This point, I have indeed witnessed it with my own eyes. After a pause, she was satisfied to see the deep meaning in everyone's eyes. She then continued, originally, my fourth sister had already dug away Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade, completely turning her into a waste. But unfortunately, on the day that her profound heart jade was dug out, she turned from a waste into a cultivator. Not only did she force me to retreat, even that father of mine, Three Springs Sex Patriarch, wasn't Yiqing Luo's opponent. Later on, I asked Yuchiya about what happened that day. What's the matter? Butterfly Saint Technique couldn't stand Yiqing Qian's purposely keeping them in suspense as she urged. Yiqing Qian paused after each word. That day, Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade was dug out and she was forced to drink a strong medicinal soup. In the process of rebelling against Yuchiya, she seized Dmo Xian. Take Dmo Xian hostage? How could this be? In this world, only their lord had this ability. Who could hold Dmo Xian hostage? Chapter 1665. Shi Shanglan pondered for a moment, then slowly nodded. He recalled that after the interclass competition in the Heavenly Academy, when Yiqing Luo came to the Shi family's courtyard, there was a man who followed beside her. A man with a strong sense of presence. It should be Dmo Xian. Other than Dmo Xian, no one else had such a strong aura. If that person was really Dmo Xian. In addition, the Imperial Palace had been attacking the dark forces during this period of time. Yiqing Qian's words, 90%, were right. Everyone could see that. How much did Dmo Xian care about Yiqing Luo? I will return to the island first to investigate this matter. Shi Shanglan's expression was solemn. He stood up and cupped his fists at the few people. The few of them immediately stood up and sent Shi Shanglan to the door. Yiqing Luo, who was at the door, immediately used her blink and returned to the room where she was locked up in the moment Shi Shanglan stood up. The sound of footsteps could be heard outside the door. Soon after, the footsteps gradually faded away. They should have sent him out of the Crane Palace. Soon after, the footsteps of a few people gradually approached. Yiqing Luo leaned against the side of the bed and continued to pretend to be asleep. He could clearly hear a few people grumbling outside the door. They were all silently scolding Shi Shanglan for using his power to bully others. After grumbling for a while, the few of them passed by the room where Yiqing Luo was locked up. Pharaoh He's footsteps suddenly paused. Although the mission this time has failed, this pharaoh has brought back Yiqing Luo, this profound heart jade's vessel. I believe that it can also remove the Lord over God's seal in advance. Wolf Saint Technique scoffed lightly. Even if we make use of Yiqing Luo's vessel physique to transfer profound energy to the Overlord God in advance, but to remove the seal, we still need a young and clean young man's spirit. As long as the Lord Master God's profound strength is replenished, he can temporarily wake up. When the time comes, we will naturally listen to our Lord's arrangements and proceed with the next step of the plan. Pharaoh He glanced at him coldly. What? Seeing that I, the Pharaoh, can make up for my mistakes, you feel unbalanced? We're all working for the Lord. What's the difference between you and me? The butterfly sacred technique couldn't take it anymore and interrupted their argument. Your idea isn't bad. If we can make the Lord God awake for a short while, we'll be able to get instructions for our future actions. When Pharaoh Crane received the sacred butterfly technique's praise, he immediately went forward. Dai also thinks that my method is good, right? Alright, I'll bring Yiqing Luo that slut to the dark sacred region now to awaken the Overlord. As he spoke, Pharaoh Crane pushed open the tightly shut door. Yiqing Luo's heart twitched violently. Darkness Sanctum? What is that place? She heard Pharaoh Crane's approaching footsteps. She could also smell the auras of those people who were already close to her. Yiqing Luo calmed her breathing. She felt a hand reaching out to her. Suddenly, the Wolf Saint Law's voice came from the door again. The Darkness Sanctuary is the place where his lordship is sealed. Are you sure it's safe to bring her there? Even now, you still doubt my secret technique? Pharaoh He was clearly enraged. Yiqing Luo's profound jade heart had already been completely contaminated by the profound Yin Qi. Under his secret technique, there was no way for her to regain her senses. The Wolf Saint Law had repeatedly doubted if Yiqing Luo was really controlled by Lao AI. Wasn't this questioning his ability? Chapter 1666. Pharaoh He swiftly conjured a hand seal. One by one, complicated incantations were spat out from his mouth. Oh no. Was he testing her again? She wasn't under Pharaoh He's control. How would she know what order Pharaoh He had given her? Yiqing Luo immediately called out to Old Man Song in her heart. Lass, quick! Get up and kill Wolf Saint Technique. Old Man Song's reminder rang in her mind. Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Following Old Man Song's instructions, her figure suddenly moved and sprinted towards Wolf Saint Technique's direction. Her palms flipped and her palm chi was like a rainbow. Slut! Wolf Saint Technique's expression changed drastically as he raised his sleeves and waved out a burst of profound yin chi. Yiqing Luo's figure paused as she slowly raised her head. A pair of charming eyes, empty and cold, without a single bit of emotion. Her pink lips trembled slightly. After a while, she spat out a hoarse but exceptionally clear word, kill. Following that, Yiqing Luo wasn't afraid of death as she faced the profound yin chi of the Wolf Saint Technique and once again attacked towards the direction of the Wolf Saint Technique. Enough. Enough. Wolf Saint Technique believes that Yiqing Luo has been controlled by Tao Wu. Quickly stop. Yiqing Qian saw that Yiqing Luo was about to rush over. Her eyes flashed and suddenly rushed to the front of Wolf Saint Technique's wooden wheelchair, helping Wolf Saint Technique to block Yiqing Luo's attack. Pfft! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Yiqing Qian's mouth. Her body went limp as she fell into Wolf Saint Technique's arms. Behind her, Yiqing Luo looked at Wolf Saint Technique expressionlessly, her gaze filled with murderous intent. Kill. Kill. Her body stiffened as she approached Wolf Saint Technique once again. Wolf Saint Technique hugged the injured lady in his arms tightly, his face ashen. Enough. I believe you. Pharaoh He delightedly cancelled his fingered gesture and waved at Yiqing Luo. Alright, come back. Yiqing Luo's attack stopped abruptly. She immediately turned around and walked to Pharaoh. He sighed as she stood upright. Now, I'll take her to the darkness sacred region. Do you still have any objections? Pharaoh, he looked at Holy Wolf's ashen face and was secretly pleased. No problem, no problem. I know that no one can surpass your secret skill except for his lord. Seeing that the flames of war between the two were about to ignite again, the butterfly sacred technique immediately stepped forward and patted Pharaoh his shoulder. Pharaoh Crane's face was filled with pride after obtaining the goddess approval. However, Lang Shengfa's expression grew increasingly ugly. He raised his eyes. His sinister eyes were filled with a treacherous cold light. It was as if he wanted to teach Pharaoh he a lesson. Butterfly Saint Technique was well aware of Yi Qing Qian's position in Wolf Saint Technique's heart. She immediately pulled Pharaoh his arm and said softly, I'll accompany you to bring Yi Qing Luo to the dark sacred region. With the company of a goddess. Naturally, Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. Calling out to Yi Qing Luo, he happily followed behind the Butterfly Saint Technique and left the room. Wolf Shengfa's face darkened as he lowered his head to look at the pale-faced woman lying feebly in his arms. There was a vicious look in his eyes. His slender fingers clasped Yi Qing Qian's lower jaw tightly. In front of this saint technique, you occasionally play some little tricks. This saint technique pampers you and allows you to do as you please, but... His eyes turned cold. His fingers suddenly relaxed as he gently caressed her seductive face. The vicious look in his eyes became extremely thick at this moment. But if you dare to use your own body as a bargaining chip to please me, I will personally destroy this body of yours. Yi Qing Qian's petite body trembled slightly. A sliver of disbelief surfaced on her pale face. This sentence sounded like he was concerned about her body. He couldn't bear for her to get injured just to block his attack. But... Chapter 1667. Along the way, Yi Qing Luo maintained her robot state, obediently following behind Pharaoh Crane. Pharaoh his entire heart was placed on the Butterfly Saint Technique, so he had no time to bother about Yi Qing Luo. As for Butterfly Saint Technique, she was getting impatient from Pharaoh his pestering, but on the surface, she still had to go along with a few sentences. She was slightly distracted and didn't pay much attention to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. If someone keeps staring at me, he would eventually give himself away. Before reaching the dark sanctuary, she could not let anyone know that she was not contaminated. Darkness Sanctum, the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Girl, are you sure you really want to enter the darkness sacred region? Old Man Sung's voice was filled with worry. He knew that he had no way to persuade Yi Qing Luo to give up on this idea. But based on Yi Qing Luo's current ability, if something really happened, there was no way to escape. He still hadn't been able to cultivate a spiritual body, so he could only wait anxiously in the Azure Dew bracelet. If only he knew that this girl was such a troublemaker. Back then, he should have exhausted everything to cultivate the spirit body first. Even if I don't go in, I'm afraid I won't be able to leave. Yi Qing Luo replied in her heart. There was no turning back now that she had snuck into the underground forces. She had no other choice but to follow her original plan and keep moving forward. Moreover, her original intention was to take the opportunity to infiltrate the Dark Coalition and find out the location of the Dark Coalition's base. Now, there was a chance to enter the Darkness Sanctuary. It was even more impossible for her to give up this opportunity. The King of Darkness was currently sealed, and he did not have any strength left. If she were to do something to the Sanctuary of Darkness and ruin the King of Darkness' plan to remove the seal, it would be a heavy blow to the dark forces. This darkness sacred region. Naturally, she had to go. That place is too dangerous. I'm worried that based on your current strength, you won't be able to handle it. Old Man Sung naturally knew what Yi Qing Luo was planning. However, there was no such plan. There was only a 1% chance. If it was really that easy to foil the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal, then the King of Darkness wouldn't be able to do so. The dark forces would not have had the chance to turn things around. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. Her slender fingers gently rubbed the profound phoenix ring on her fingertip. I'm not afraid. I believe. Ah, Xian will understand what I mean. Yi Qing Luo's heart felt a trace of warmth when she thought of that purple-robed man with peerless elegance. She believed in the feelings between Dmo Xian and her. Even if she said nothing, Dmo Xian would definitely understand. Ever since she was young, she had been brainwashed into thinking that she could only rely on herself in this world. She couldn't rely on anyone. Even those old men from the Yi clan. Even the old man who taught her all kinds of ultimate skills. She could not be relied on. But, to Dmo Xian, she wanted to rely on him. Stop, stop, stop. Old man Song helplessly shook his head. This old man is worried about you. I don't want to get dog food from you. The word dog food. Old man Song had learned it from Yi Qing Luo. You are still a person controlled by Pi. Don't show that kind of smile. If the people from the dark forces see it, all your plans will be ruined. Old man Song reminded him. Indeed, now was not the time to show off their affection. Yi Qing Luo kept the emotions in her heart as she refocused her energy on the two people in front. Pharaoh He and Butterfly Saint Technique were still talking about something. Chapter 1668. After several twists and turns, they walked for more than an hour. Pharaoh He finally stopped at an extremely secluded back mountain in the palace. Along the way, Yi Qing Luo had already formed a map of the surrounding terrain in her mind. And this secluded back mountain could be said. It was really secluded. If it wasn't for the fact that she was following behind Pharaoh He, she probably wouldn't even be able to find this place. Even if she found it, she would absolutely not link the dark sacred region with this secluded back mountain. This place was actually the dark sacred region where the King of Darkness was sealed. In order to conceal the dark sacred region, the dark forces are really going all out. Old man Song was extremely astonished. I didn't sense any profound yin-chi fluctuations in the surroundings. The dark forces were able to develop their forces till now even after the King of Darkness was sealed. And to think of ways to sneak into the Nirvana realm, this is enough to prove that the dark forces are not idiots. After hearing old man Song's words, Yi Qing Luo also understood why the dark forces wanted to use this desolate back mountain to conceal the dark sacred region. If the dark forces met with an ambush, even if the entire clan was annihilated, at least the King of Darkness was still alive. As long as the King of Darkness was still alive, once the seal was released, their dark forces would be able to step into development once again, stepping into the peak. You also know that they are not idiots, so you better be careful. If the dark forces find out, I won't be able to save you. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's tone, it was still that relaxed. Old man Song sighed helplessly. Only this lass could maintain her composure the closer they were to danger. As a saint technique, I don't have the right to learn the secret arts, so I can only send you here. Butterfly Saint Technique stopped in her tracks as she smiled at Pharaoh He. Pharaoh He grabbed Butterfly Saint Technique's little hand as he smiled. As long as Dai wants, I can teach you anything. The rules set by his lordship can't be broken. The Butterfly Saint Law patted the back of his hand coquettishly, winked, and said angrily, "All right, hurry up and lead that little slut in. I can't wait to see that little slut become food for the Lord." Pharaoh He took advantage of Butterfly Saint Technique's words again. At the same time, he hinted at the Butterfly Saint Technique ambiguously. He walked towards Yi Qing Luo and clasped her shoulders. Yi Qing Luo was in pain, but she forcefully endured the intense pain. Pharaoh He dragged him toward the deserted back mountain. As she stepped into the rear mountain, Yi Qing Luo clearly felt a cooling sensation brushing past her cheeks and body. Yi Qing Luo acutely discovered that when Pharaoh He walked up the rear mountain, his fingers had already formed a hand seal. This is a barrier? Yes, this kind of barrier is different from the traditional barriers that you normally encounter. Old man Song promptly explained, this is a kind of dark barrier, a reverse barrier. Reverse bounded domain? What the hell is this? Barriers can be divided into several types. In other words, there is a reverse barrier set up in this back mountain. If you don't have the reverse spirit formation's secret technique, you won't be blocked like a traditional spirit formation when you step into the back mountain. Instead, the back mountain that you enter is truly just a back mountain. If you use the reverse spirit formation's secret technique to enter this back mountain, you will arrive at the real hidden place. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Looked like in order to enter the dark sacred region, she needed to know about this reverse spirit formation's secret technique. Then, how should Xian use the profound phoenix ring to find her? Chapter 1669. She was forcefully dragged along by Pharaoh He for about 1 incense's time. Yiqing Luo felt that her shoulders were about to be torn apart. This old man was so gentle in front of the butterfly saint technique, like a little wolf dog trying to please her. Facing her, he was so crude, not knowing how to be protective of the fairer sex. At least, her looks were several streets ahead of the butterfly saint technique. At least, she was younger than the butterfly saint technique. Why did this old man have to target her? Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with grief and indignation. Under Pharaoh He's tugging, she entered the reverse enchantment, the real hidden place. The surroundings were strangely quiet. It was so quiet that only their footsteps could be heard. The surroundings were filled with a black fog, emitting a poisonous miasma. Between the breaths, there was an extremely thick smell of blood. The bright moon in the sky hung on the horizon, faintly discernible, but it wasn't clear. Instead, it added a strange atmosphere. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally landed on the front. That was the end of a path filled with black brambles. At the end, there was a majestic palace made of black jade stones. The palace was surrounded by 12 pillars, representing the 12 constellations. And every pillar was engraved with sealing runes. The runes on the pillars were emitting a smooth jade glow, suppressing the black fog in all directions. Other than the strange black brambles, there was not a single blade of grass around. The heavens and earth were silent, as though only Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh He were the only living people in this world. Yiqing Luo looked at the surrounding 12 pillars, then she looked at the palace in front of her. This was dark sacred region. The place where the King of Darkness was sealed. When she saw this majestic palace, Pharaoh He's hand, which was pinching Yiqing Luo's shoulder, slowly slid down. The expression on his face became extremely respectful. His entire being became more solemn. He lifted his feet and walked towards the palace. Yiqing Luo followed closely behind. The two of them, one in front and one behind, followed the brambles on the ground, as they walked into the palace. A thick smell of blood assaulted their senses. It was so thick that it made them nauseous. The surrounding black fog and miasma also gradually dispersed. Pharaoh Crane did not feel the atmosphere in the palace at all. His expression was solemn, and his eyes were filled with respect. With an incomparably devout heart, he walked at the front step by step. The interior of the palace was extremely spacious. The first thing he saw was a huge circular altar. Below the altar was a huge pit that occupied 2/3 of the palace. The pit was covered with a thin layer of silk cloth. No, that was not silk. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she stared intently at that silk cloth. If she wasn't wrong, it should be the thin frost formed by the 10,000-year-old ice on the 10,000-year-old ice mountain in the north of the Nirvana realm. This thin frost had lasted for tens of thousands of years. It absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. It never melts all year round. Yiqing Luo had once heard that this 10,000-year-old cold ice had the ability to preserve corpses and prevent them from rotting forever. Who would have thought that the 10,000-year frost would be in the darkness sanctuary? What was covered by the thin frost? Yiqing Luo wanted to take a closer look. Suddenly, he heard a loud thud beside his ear. Pharaoh He knelt down on the ground, facing that circular altar, as he knocked his head hard onto the ground. Lass, don't be in a daze, follow suit and kneel down. Old man's song immediately reminded her in her mind. Kneel down? Make her kneel down in front of the King of Darkness? Looking at Pharaoh he's devout, kneeling back view, Yi Ching Luo's eyes gradually turned cold. This place. There was only Pharaoh he alone. The King of Darkness was in the seal. If she were to kill Pharaoh he now, then she would ruin the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal. Chapter 1670. Just as Yi Ching Luo was thinking of a series of plans, suddenly, he heard an unfamiliar voice that sounded like rustling leaves. Did you fail? Yi Ching Luo felt a chill down her spine. This voice was just 3 simple words, but it made Yi Ching Luo feel a terrifying aura. Yi Ching Luo instinctively reacted. This voice, it was the voice of the King of Darkness. Other than the King of Darkness, there was no other presence in the dark sacred region. Wasn't the King of Darkness sealed? Why could he still speak? Had she guessed wrongly? How could that be the voice of the King of Darkness? Numerous thoughts filled her mind. The next moment, Pharaoh he had already used his actions to express everything. Pharaoh he respectfully knelt on the ground as his voice trembled. My lord, I'm sorry, it's my incompetence, to let a young lass destroy the spirit assimilation array. Indeed, that voice came from the King of Darkness. The person who was sealed could still speak. The King of Darkness is a being that roams above the lower realm and below the upper realm, not belonging to the 4 realms. Even if the King of Darkness is sealed, the consciousness of the King of Darkness still exists. Old Man Song's tone was extremely solemn and solemn. Lass, the power of the King of Darkness is far beyond your imagination. Even if the consciousness of the King of Darkness can't stay awake for too long, but, to deal with you, it's more than enough. Yi Ching Luo was stunned. In the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of icy cold eyes staring at her without blinking. A chill spread from her feet all the way to the top of her head. Her entire body seemed to have been frozen into an ice cube. She congealed her senses and tried her best to maintain her state of being under control. My lord, the reason for my failure is because of Yi Ching Luo that. Pharaoh he anxiously wanted to say that there might be someone from the lower realm behind Yi Ching Luo, helping her. But before he could finish his words, he was sent flying by a powerful force, crashing heavily onto the stone wall of the palace. With a dong, he rolled down from the stone wall. Pharaoh he clutched his chest as he spat out a mouthful of blood. A failure is a failure. Don't try to find excuses for your failure. A cold and sinister voice rang out, carrying with it an obvious killing intent. Spare me, Lord. Spare me. I know I was wrong, I won't fail again, Pharaoh Crane's plea did not arouse the slightest bit of sympathy from the King of Darkness. That powerful force came wave after wave. It continuously swept up Pharaoh Crane's body. He was flung around in all directions. Under the punishment of the King of Darkness, several of Pharaoh's bones were broken, and blood was flowing out of his mouth. After an unknown period of time. Perhaps the King of Darkness was tired. Perhaps it was because he saw Pharaoh Crane lying on the ground on his last breath. He only needed one more strike to take Pharaoh Crane's life. The majestic aura that lingered in the surroundings suddenly dissipated. Yi Ching Luo remained standing at the same spot, her body tensed up, totally unaffected by this imposing manner. The target was the King of Darkness. Pharaoh Crane was riddled with scars from the fall. He didn't dare to order Yi Ching Luo to bear it for him. Yi Ching Luo didn't hear Old Man Song's reminder. Pharaoh he had used a secret art to control her. Chapter 1671. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was filled with an excruciating pain. His body felt as though it was being cut by numerous saw teeth. His face was pale as the pain continued to stimulate his consciousness. But he didn't dare to dodge or resist at all. Useless trash, What's the use of this king keeping a bunch of trash like you? King of Darkness's voice was hoarse as it was filled with a terrifying eeriness. Pharaoh Crane laid on the ground as he panted heavily. His face was filled with blood stains. His forelimbs had lost the ability to move under King of Darkness's violent attacks. But when he heard King of Darkness's voice, Pharaoh Crane forced himself to hold on as he slowly shifted his body into a kneeling position. His voice was trembling as he opened his mouth in terror. Overlord. Overlord, please forgive me, although I failed in the mission of the spirit assimilation array, but I brought Yi Qing Luo back. Saying that, he raised his head with difficulty as he looked at Yi Qing Luo, who was standing stiffly by the side, not moving at all. For a long time, King of Darkness didn't say a word. It was just that the chill in the surroundings continued to spread. Even if it was Yi Qing Luo, her skin had already started to break out with goosebumps under this chill. Finally, King of Darkness's voice rang. Yi Qing Luo, that vessel? Yes, it's the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel. Pharaoh Crane immediately responded, as long as there's profound chi nurtured by the vessel, I can also speed up my lord's unsealing speed. Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Vessel? When Yi Qing Luo heard Pharaoh Crane's words, her heart thumped extremely quickly. Could it be her heaven-defying Profound Heart Jade? What kind of Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade was it? And was this Profound Heart Jade's vessel? Using her own body to nurture this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel? Why didn't she understand the meaning behind Pharaoh Crane's words? Heh! You bunch of trash do have some use. King of Darkness sneered softly. Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt that there was a pair of icy cold, terrifying gaze falling onto her. She was unable to sense the exact direction of that gaze. Or perhaps she felt that there were people staring at her from all directions. That gaze was glued onto her. It made her have a nauseous impulse. Yi Qing Luo knew. The King of Darkness was sizing her up. She couldn't move, her heart couldn't beat fast, and her breathing couldn't be rushed. The King of Darkness was not Pharaoh Crane. Any small problem could expose the fact that she was not being controlled by Tao Wu. What are you waiting for? Bring the container over to this king. Could it be that you want this king to do it himself? As soon as the King of Darkness's cold voice rang out, a loud sound rang out. Pharaoh He, who was kneeling on the ground, was once again sent flying backward. Pharaoh Crane rolled a few times on the ground. Enduring the intense pain, he stumbled and crawled towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. What are you waiting for? Go over to his lordship's side. Pharaoh He leaned close to Yi Qing Luo as he commanded in a low voice. Yi Qing Luo's body stiffened as she lifted her feet and walked towards that circular altar. Pharaoh Crane took the opportunity to chant a secret technique and performed a simple healing and pain relief on himself before catching up. The closer they got to the altar, the thicker the stench of blood permeated Yi Qing Luo's nose. The smell of blood. The smell was even more pungent and unpleasant than when she was in the flame lair and the ground was littered with corpses. Chapter 1672. My lord, the last time I obtained the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, I could only use it to sense the location of the vast water divine weapon. This time, with this vessel, I will definitely be able to maximize the effects of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Pharaoh Crane cautiously approached the altar, not forgetting to flatter it in a low voice. Have you found the whereabouts of the other azure water divine weapons? The King of Darkness scoffed. Pharaoh He's face turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. How could he have forgotten? Even though he had obtained the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, the Azure Dew Ring was still taken away by Yi Qing Luo in the end. If it wasn't for his lord having foresight and letting him use a secret technique first to tamper with the Profound Heart Jade, he wouldn't have been able to do so. I'm afraid they totally had no idea how to deal with Yi Qing Luo. The dark forces were losing again and again. All of them had fallen onto Yi Qing Luo. He was still mentioning the vast water divine artifact. Wasn't that courting death? Pharaoh's body trembled, and his voice trembled as he said, My lord, don't worry. After this subordinate transmits the mystical energy within the vessel to my lord, I will immediately send the people of the Crane faction to search for the whereabouts of the other Azure Water divine weapons. If you're going to search for the whereabouts of the divine artifact, how is this vessel going to nurture the profound energy needed to break my seal? The King of Darkness sneered. Pharaoh Crane was drenched in cold sweat. Bean-sized beads of sweat dripped from his forehead. His body trembled in fear. Their conversation made Yiqing Luo even more puzzled. Was it her profound heart jade, or the radar that was searching for the Azure Water divine weapon? She suddenly remembered that last time, in the tomb of the Ling King, the people from the dark forces had used her profound heart jade to open the barrier of the Azure Water ring. Her profound heart jade. Did it have any special connection to the Azure Water divine artifact? She remembered that the Azure Water ring seemed to be calling out to her at that time. It was as if the Azure Water ring was originally a divine tool that belonged to her. Why was the King of Darkness collecting the Azure Water divine weapon? Moreover, it seemed like he was determined to get it. To the dark forces, the Azure Water divine artifact, what kind of crucial role did it play? Cough cough, little girl, what you should be worried about right now isn't the matter of the vast water divine artifact. Old Man Sung reminded her helplessly. If your profound energy is completely sucked out by Pharaoh He and transferred to the seal of the sacred region, you will lose all your profound energy and become a cripple. Yiqing Luo laughed secretly in her heart. Did you think that I would give Pharaoh He this chance? Are you going to use force? Old Man Sung hurriedly tried to dissuade him. This is the territory of the dark forces. If the King of Darkness knows that your profound heart jade isn't contaminated by the profound Yin Qi, you won't be able to leave the darkness sanctuary with your strength. The King of Darkness won't be able to remain conscious for long. Furthermore, he used up all his energy to punish Pharaoh He. How much energy does he have left? Yiqing Luo asked calmly. She noticed. The King of Darkness was determined to kill Pharaoh He. However, when Pharaoh He said that she, as a vessel, should be transferred to the King of Darkness, she felt a chill run down her spine. The King of Darkness' killing intent had clearly weakened. The King of Darkness needed power. Even if it was sealed. He still needed power. Before entering the Darkness Sanctuary, the Butterfly Saint technique had mentioned that the King of Darkness would awaken for a short period of time. Short period of time, these two words meant that the time that the King of Darkness would be awake for wasn't considered long. Or rather, the reason why he could obtain a short period of consciousness. Chapter 1673. Which meant, even if Yiqing Luo revealed that she wasn't contaminated, the King of Darkness couldn't do anything to her. Old Man Song was stunned as he burst out laughing. What a good lass, Luo, your thoughts are so meticulous. I finally understand the reason why you insist on following Pharaoh He into the dark sacred region. This lass. She would never do anything that she wasn't sure of. Even if she was in danger. She had already planned all her escape routes. She was indeed the owner of the Azure Dew bracelet. Just as Yiqing Luo and Old Man Sung were conversing, she and Pharaoh He were already standing on the altar. Pharaoh He looked at the stiff young lady who was standing in the middle of the altar. A sinister glint flashed past his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that this young lady was the divine phoenix profound jade's vessel, he would definitely strangle her to death. Suppressing the hatred and anger towards Yiqing Luo, Pharaoh He walked over to her. My lord, I will start the incantation now. Pharaoh He grabbed Yiqing Luo's wrist and pressed her against the altar wall, which was filled with complicated patterns. Suddenly, a bone-piercing chill came from his back. A disgusting, indescribable feeling of disgust and fear surged up her heart. That was the feeling of the King of Darkness. On the wall of the altar. It was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. This was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh He raised her hand, and after pressing it against the wall, he pulled her other hand and pressed it against the wall. But when he pressed down on the other hand. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. Her body was like a broken kite as it flew out horizontally. He was flung out of the altar and landed on the ground. Yiqing Luo used all her strength for this kick. That kick caused Pharaoh's internal organs to feel like they had been shattered. His throat felt sweet as he spat out a mouthful of blood. You. Pharaoh, he trembled as he raised his head to look at the altar. But he discovered that Yiqing Luo was standing by the side of the altar, looking at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Pharaoh's eyes were filled with shock. You. Don't you can't even speak properly, just save some energy. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she leapt down the altar. Then, he stomped on Pharaoh Crane's chest. Another mouthful of blood gushed out from Pharaoh Crane's mouth. It's fine if you can't speak. Whatever you want to ask, I'll answer it for you. Yiqing Luo gave a light smile as she lowered her body slightly, looking down at Pharaoh's face which was filled with terror. You want to know why I attacked you, right? Pharaoh Crane's pupils constricted. The moment he got agitated, his internal organs tightened as well. It was so painful that he couldn't help but curl up and twitch. Pharaoh, don't doubt your own secret arts. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened. I don't have the ability to break free from your secret arts control. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. If it wasn't for the fact that she had broken free from his secret technique, she would have died. How could Yiqing Luo possibly regain her consciousness? Because, from the beginning to the end, I have never been controlled by you. Yiqing Luo's fingers gently touched her chest. In my profound jade heart, I used the dark secret arts to hide the profound Yin Qi, just to wait for this moment. But unfortunately, your plan has failed once again. Pharaoh's pupils suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with astonishment, as though he was surprised that Yiqing Luo knew all these. Yiqing Luo smiled like a flower. Pharaoh's face was as white as paper. The atmosphere froze in an instant. Chapter 1674. Hearing King of Darkness's words, Yiqing Luo turned her head and looked towards the altar which was filled with patterns on the wall. Her pink lips rose slightly as she said in an evil and frivolous tone, then you have to come out from inside first. The surrounding mysterious Yin Qi, as well as the impending chill of a storm, suddenly deepened. King of Darkness was enraged. He was enraged. Yiqing Luo smiled even more joyfully. Between her brows was a bright and enchanting smile. King of Darkness, don't try to threaten me. Her voice was calm, without any fluctuation of emotions. You who have been sealed. Your remaining energy is probably not enough to keep me in the dark sacred region. So confident? King of Darkness laughed coldly. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were filled with a sliver of arrogance. Then why don't King of Darkness give it a try, to use your last bit of energy to test me? Or to stop me, to destroy your plan to remove the seal? Silence made this treacherous atmosphere become more and more strange. King of Darkness didn't speak. Yiqing Luo's heart slowly calmed down. Her guess was right. King of Darkness didn't have much energy left. She had this divine phoenix profound heart jade, so King of Darkness didn't dare to make a move easily. After all, King of Darkness didn't know much about her ability. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about King of Darkness's silence. She turned her head back as her lips curled into a smile. Her eyes were filled with a sharp glint as she fixed her gaze on Pharaoh, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. Pharaoh, do you want to live on? She smiled lightly as her tone was gentle. Pharaoh's pupils contracted as he stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. She smiled slightly. Your life to me is not that important. If I want to strangle you, it's much easier than strangling an ant. Pharaoh, he was so angry that his heart was in pain. His entire body trembled. His internal organs were trembling, as though they were being torn apart. Answer my question obediently, and I guarantee that you will be safe. Out of the dark sacred region. Yi Qing Luo suddenly bent down as her slender fingers suddenly clasped onto Pharaoh He's neck. Her fingers tightened, the bones of her fingers were slender and distinct. Pharaoh He's pale face instantly turned purplish green. Pharaoh He's pupils dilated as he struggled to break free from Yi Qing Luo's fingers. But his body was riddled with wounds, and he didn't have the strength to struggle. You don't want to die, right? Yi Qing Luo could see the desire to live from Pharaoh He's eyes. He wanted to ask the King of Darkness for help. But he couldn't say a word. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she loosened the strength on his neck, as her other hand landed on his face, as she gently patted him. It wasn't easy to get to where you are today. How would you bear to die so easily? Don't worry. As long as you answer my questions obediently, not only will I guarantee your safety, but I will also guarantee that you will obtain the sacred butterfly technique. He mentioned the butterfly saint technique. Pharaoh He's eyes flashed with a glint. Yi Qing Luo took a panoramic view of his emotional changes. Then, she continued, think about it. If I send you out and I stay in the darkness sanctuary to fight the King of Darkness, who will benefit in the end? The glint in Pharaoh He's eyes grew brighter. If Yi Qing Luo and the King of Darkness were to fight, the current King of Darkness might not be Yi Qing Luo's match. If the King of Darkness was completely sealed, wouldn't the beneficiaries be the 4 great saint techniques and the 4 great pharaohs? By then, he would pretend to be under the King of Darkness's orders. He would control all the dark forces in his hands. Chapter 1675. This bottle of medicine can make the butterfly saint skill willingly to follow you. Yi Qing Luo touched the profound phoenix ring and took out a white jade bottle. Under this treacherous light, that white jade bottle shone with a dazzling luster. Pharaoh He's gaze fell directly on the white jade bottle. He heard that Yi Qing Luo was an alchemist. It was extremely normal for Yi Qing Luo to be able to refine a pill that could make a lady willingly follow her. What do you want to know? Pharaoh He finally surrendered. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly. What is the divine phoenix profound heart jade? What secret is hidden in this profound heart jade of mine? This. Pharaoh He's face turned pale, as though he didn't expect Yi Qing Luo to ask this question. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. Why? Not willing to say? No. Pharaoh He hurriedly opened his mouth, his eyes filled with panic. But, this matter is extremely complicated. Maybe you don't understand. Yi Qing Luo continued to raise her brows as she softly hummed a note. But it made Pharaoh He's scalp go numb. Divine Phoenix profound heart jade. It's. Pharaoh He looked towards the altar in horror, only to discover that the King of Darkness didn't move at all. Then he looked at Yi Qing Luo's beautiful face with a light smile. He gritted his teeth and replied, Divine Phoenix profound heart jade is the most noble profound heart jade in this world. There is only one of it in this world. Most noble? How much is the difference between the purple grade profound heart jade and the profound heart jade behind you? Yi Qing Luo asked again. Purple grade profound heart jade? There's no comparison at all. This is only because you people from the lower realms think that the purple grade profound heart jade is the highest grade profound heart jade. In the upper realms, there are a lot of them. But the preciousness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, even the strongest person in the god realm covets it. Yi Qing Luo remained silent for a moment. She had heard of the lower realms and the upper realms more than once. This nirvana realm was the lower realm. Then the upper realms. Was it referring to those legendary cultivators who were brought to a higher realm? He was worried that Yi Qing Luo wouldn't understand. Pharaoh He explained in great detail once more. The upper realm was divided into 3 realms. In the lower realm, the upper realm was called the upper 3 realms. The upper 3 realms were divided into the earth realm, heaven realm, and God realm. The God world was the strongest plane of existence. Any random passerby there, if placed in the next plane, could set off a reign of terror and break the balance of the heavenly Tao. and the profound heart jade that even the strongest people in the god world coveted. It was clear how precious the divine phoenix profound heart jade was. After Yiqing Luo heard all these, her heart was filled with astonishment. Her profound heart jade was actually so precious. It was no wonder that the King of Darkness had thought of all sorts of ways to dig away her profound heart jade. Then, what do you mean by a vessel? Yiqing Luo didn't forget how the King of Darkness addressed her. Pharaoh Crane was no longer as bashful as before, and answered straightforwardly. Not everyone can control the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Once an ordinary profound heart jade is dug out, a profound practitioner can absorb its profound energy. But the divine phoenix heart jade was different. When we obtain the divine phoenix profound heart jade, we can't even unleash 1% of its power. And you are the divine phoenix profound heart jade's vessel, the energy absorber. Only your body can nurture the divine phoenix profound heart jade, and from there, produce an endless supply of profound energy. It was indeed like this. Chapter 1676. Since transmigrating till now, Yiqing Luo had a question in her heart. But this question, the people from the Yi family would definitely not give her an answer. As the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, she had an enviable profound jade heart. Why was it that she was trash without any profound chi? And after she transmigrated to this continent, she used the dragon god cauldron to refine the marrow cleansing pill, which changed this body's physique. Then, if her profound jade heart was the divine phoenix profound jade heart, why couldn't her original body cultivate? Then how could it give birth to an endless stream of profound chi? Yiqing Luo. You can rest assured, although the divine phoenix profound jade heart is something everyone in the upper realm wants, but other than you, no one else can bring out the effect of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Seeing that Yiqing Luo didn't speak, Pharaoh he thought that she was worried that her divine phoenix profound jade heart would be discovered by the people from the upper realm. Your current strength is not enough to bring out the maximum power of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. The people from the upper realm will not find out about the birth of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Then how did you know? Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. The ridiculousness of the cold glare made Pharaoh he tremble. This is what his lordship said, we are only following orders. Pharaoh he was so scared that his face turned pale as he hurriedly replied. King of Darkness? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and glanced at the seal on the altar. A trace of suspicion flashed past her eyes. But she didn't continue to investigate. Instead, her lips curled as she looked at Pharaoh he with a light smile. What do you want to use my profound jade heart to collect the azure water divine weapon for? Pharaoh he's pupils contracted continuously. For a long time, he couldn't open his mouth to answer. Obviously, Yiqing Luo's question touched the scope of his resistance. But the more Pharaoh he refused to answer the question, the more Yiqing Luo wanted to know. What was the use of the azure water divine weapon to the dark forces? Pharaoh he cared so much about the azure water divine weapon. What secret was the azure water divine weapon hiding? Yiqing Luo's fingertips drew out a sharp dagger from the fan handle. She bent down and placed the cold dagger on Pharaoh he's face. She smiled and said in a gentle tone, Pharaoh Crane, I'm not a very patient person. If you insist on wasting your time here, my dagger will not have eyes. Pharaoh he's face turned even paler. He tensed his body, trying to avoid the dagger in Yiqing Luo's hand. But when he moved, the sharp blade pierced into the skin on his face. A streak of blood oozed out from his face. A piercing pain caused Pharaoh he's hair to stand on end. He knew that Yiqing Luo wasn't joking. If he continued to hesitate, the next place that Yiqing Luo's dagger would slash open would be his neck. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was trembling. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or fear. It was only at the last moment when Yiqing Luo impatiently moved her dagger. He gritted his teeth and squeezed each word out from between his teeth. The azure water divine weapon is the highest position in the upper realms. God Realm's Lord God Emperor's personal accessory 10,000 years ago and is tainted with Lord God Emperor's power. Rumors say that Lord God Emperor passed away 10,000 years ago and was buried in the God Emperor's tomb. And the azure water divine weapon is the guide to find the God Emperor's tomb. Speaking of this, Pharaoh He's voice paused for a moment. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. What motive does the dark forces have to find the God Emperor's tomb? Chapter 1677. You want to taste bitterness again? Yiqing Luo looked at Pharaoh He with a smile that didn't look like a smile. He couldn't help but think to himself, could this old man be a masochist? Every time he answered a question, he had to be coy and not answer. Then, he waited for her to suffer all kinds of horrible abuse before he pretended to answer her with much difficulty. Actually, he must be secretly pleased, right? He actually liked her sadistic behavior, didn't he? This thought made Yiqing Luo shiver uncontrollably. Suddenly, he could not look at Pharaoh Crane in the eye. Pharaoh He didn't know what Yiqing Luo was thinking about, but when he heard Yiqing Luo's extremely calm question, he lowered his head and replied in a trembling voice, "Find the God Emperor's tomb, awaken the God Emperor's emperor, and obtain the God Emperor's inheritance." The inheritance of the divine emperor? Hearing these 4 words, Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. The dark forces actually wanted to obtain the divine emperor's inheritance? The dark forces were so ambitious. The power inherited by the ruler of the highest plane was enough to shake both the upper and lower worlds, and even beyond the 2 worlds. The dark forces did not only want to dominate the Nirvana realm. He even wanted to rule the upper realm. It was no wonder that Pharaoh Crane would reveal an expression of disbelief at her question. Looking at Pharaoh Crane's trembling body, Yi Zichen could not help but sigh. Yiqing Luo's squinted eyes slowly surfaced a meaningful arc. Then, her pink lips curled into a smile. She sheathed the dagger and smiled sweetly. One last question. It was the last question. Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. He really didn't want to answer Yiqing Luo's questions anymore. All of these questions made him break out in cold sweat. If Yiqing Luo asked a few more questions. I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. How do I completely seal the King of Darkness? Yiqing Luo fixed her eyes on Pharaoh He's eyes, as she asked with a light smile, word by word. The joy on Pharaoh He's face stiffened. His pupils dilated as he looked at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. This question was within his expectations, but it was also unexpected. The King of Darkness is your master. I can understand why you don't dare to completely seal him. Yiqing Luo had a comforting expression as she patted Pharaoh He's shoulder, but I'm different. My motive for coming here is to seal the King of Darkness. You. Just kill me. Just kill me. Pharaoh Crane's face was ashen. I said you're silly, you're really silly. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes, curled her fingers and knocked hard on Pharaoh Crane's head. The will to die in Pharaoh He's eyes was genuine. This question had clearly touched Pharaoh Crane's bottom line. If he forcefully interrogated him, he definitely wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. Yiqing Luo half squatted down as she leaned close to Pharaoh He's ear and laughed lightly. Haven't I said it before? I will fight to the death with the King of Darkness, and you will be the one who benefits in the end. Isn't that a win-win situation? In other words, this is the way to seal the King of Darkness. Tell her. She had completely sealed the King of Darkness. As for Pharaoh he, after leaving the Sanctuary of Darkness, he became the leader of the dark forces. This was a blatant temptation. Pharaoh Crane was silent. Yiqing Luo picked up the white jade bottle and shook it in front of his eyes. Her eyes squinted slightly as traces of craftiness swirled around. Of course, if you insist on protecting the King of Darkness's secret, and wholeheartedly die, I can fulfill your wish. Coercion and temptation, using both methods at the same time. Pharaoh he finally compromised. He clenched his fists tightly, as he had no strength to resist and could only obey. Chapter 1678. Runes on the wall. Yiqing Luo straightened her body as she looked towards the altar. That wall, which was filled with complicated patterns, was emitting a dense cold aura. Earlier, when Pharaoh had pinned her on that wall, Yiqing Luo could obviously feel the touch of the King of Darkness, who was sealed behind the wall. That wall. It was indeed the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh, after I seal the King of Darkness completely, I will not forget about your benefits. Yiqing Luo turned her head as she revealed a radiant smile. Following that, she turned around and with a leap, she leapt onto the altar and headed straight towards that wall, which was filled with runes. Her slender figure, under the dim and treacherous light, showed her oppressive aura. Pharaoh laid on the ground as a sharp glint flashed past his eyes. Yiqing Luo's back was facing him, so he couldn't see her expression. But he could guess. Yiqing Luo must be extremely delighted. Then let's be delighted. Let's see who can laugh till the end. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light, as though she was extremely happy. She squinted her eyes as an undetectable glint flashed past her eyes. She swept a glance at the surroundings. The circular altar was extremely spacious. In front of the seal array on the rune wall, a few burning lamps were placed. A palm-sized oil lamp was burning with a weak flame. The runes on the wall shone even more strangely. Could the King of Darkness have exhausted his energy and been sealed again? Yiqing Luo muttered softly as she stared at the rune array. Following that, she turned her head as her eyes were filled with joy. Pharaoh, what should I do to destroy this seal array? Use your Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart's energy to unleash your profound energy to the maximum and destroy the seal array along with the altar. Pharaoh, replied extremely quickly, this time without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Following that, she walked straight towards the rune seal array. She shut her eyes as she activated the profound Jade Heart's energy. A powerful and terrifying profound energy fluctuation started from her feet as it spread outwards. The profound Jade Heart's energy was completely unleashed. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. An enchanting red glow flashed past her eyes. She raised her palm and filled it with dark force. Slowly, that palm descended. Pharaoh Crane looked at Yiqing Luo's actions nervously. His sinister eyes were filled with ecstasy. Because of his excitement, his severely injured body was thrown to the back of his mind. When this palm landed, as long as this palm strike landed, Yiqing Luo was completely finished. She would completely become a tool for the dark forces to generate qi. Swish, 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 just as Pharaoh Crane was filled with excitement, a few inexplicable voices could be heard in the air. On the altar, the aura of the woman who was releasing dense Xian qi had suddenly decreased. His palms were filled with dark force and turned into a hurricane. The hurricane swept up the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array in an instant. The weak burning light was instantly extinguished. The moment the lights were turned on, Pharaoh's face instantly turned pale. He staggered back a few steps. He wasn't able to stand properly as he fell heavily onto the ground. His face was filled with astonishment as he looked in disbelief at the young lady who had retracted her palm wind. His heart instantly sank to the bottom. Chapter 1679. Pharaoh was so infuriated that he was trembling. His throat was filled with a fishy taste as he spat out a mouthful of blood. If you said that Yiqing Luo was really innocent and accidentally extinguished those few oil lamps, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He had underestimated this wretched lass's ability. Underestimated this wretched lass's intelligence. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't see Pharaoh spitting out blood as she innocently blinked her eyes. Why not? I try again. This time, I will definitely be able to destroy the altar and the ceiling array. Saying that, she had a sweet smile on her face as she flipped her palms. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up. The young lady's slender figure was like a rose blooming in the dark night. The red feather fan in her hands created numerous whirlwinds of sharp blades. In a few breaths' time, the sharp blades shot out. In front of the ceiling formation, the few remaining oil lamps were sliced into several pieces with a crackling sound. The lights stopped burning. There was no longer any oil lamp burning. Yiqing Luo sighed with a helpless look. Why is my profound qi becoming more and more disobedient? I have to try again, try again. Her words had yet to finish. An angry and irritated voice suddenly rang out, "Vessel, stop it at once." Immediately following that rune wall shot out in extremely chilly imposing manner, directly striking towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's fingertips flicked. The glower flame fan easily split apart that aura. Following that, her figure speedily retreated a few steps. Her lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly, unable to hold it in so quickly. A raging chilly aura swept across the entire dark sacred region. It indicated the King of Darkness's raging emotions. Yiqing Luo's smile grew as she retreated to Pharaoh He's side without a single trace of fear on her face. "You, how did you know? How did you know?" Pharaoh He was completely in a panic. He sat on the ground helplessly as he looked at Yiqing Luo with a face full of terror. He couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo actually knew about his and his lord's plan, knew that the most important thing in his lord's altar was those few spirit lamps which looked like oil lamps. "Do you think that I will believe your nonsense?" Yiqing Luo chuckled as she looked at Pharaoh He as though she was looking at a fool. "Impossible, clearly you." Pharaoh He could not figure out which step had gone wrong. "The questions you answered were half true and half false. I have my own ways to differentiate." Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards. She was obviously smiling, but it looked extremely horrifying. "Impossible. Impossible." Pharaoh Crane shook his head. The line of defense in his heart had completely collapsed. "From the moment you answered the second question, I started to suspect you." It was impossible for the King of Darkness to fall into a deep slumber because of the seal. Pharaoh Crane's fearful expression, as well as the fact that he was too frightened to answer every single question she asked, only to be able to answer fluently in the end. It made Yiqing Luo develop suspicions towards him. He was afraid that the King of Darkness wasn't asleep at all. But through the dark secret arts, Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh He were communicating telepathically. The questions that Pharaoh Crane answered were all questions that the King of Darkness had agreed to. The King of Darkness had been sealed for 10,000 years, so if it wasn't through you guys, how would he know about the matters in the outside world? How did the King of Darkness find out that I have the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Pharaoh He, why don't you save your effort to play your little tricks in front of me? Yiqing Luo looked at the fearful Pharaoh He with interest. Her words weren't just for Pharaoh He to hear. But Chapter 1680. Yiqing Luo really wanted to roast what was in Pharaoh Crane's brain. Not long ago, the few of them and Shi Shanglan were discussing. Was there someone from the lower realm behind her? Pharaoh He quickly threw this suspicion to the back of his mind. The King of Darkness wanted to use Pharaoh Crane's mouth to get her to help him break the seal. She didn't even think that inside her azure dew bracelet lived an old man who knew the heavens above and the earth below. How could old man Song not know how to break and destroy the Saint Realm seal? When Pharaoh He told her to release all the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade and destroy the altar, Old Man Song had already spoken out to stop her. Of course, even if Old Man Song didn't say anything to stop him, it was impossible for her to be obedient. She was not stupid. If he destroyed the altar, wouldn't he be helping the King of Darkness remove his seal? It was precisely because of Pharaoh He's words. This made Yiqing Luo raise her guard completely. From this, she concluded that the King of Darkness did not fall into a deep slumber. Instead, he wanted to use her Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade to forcefully break the seal. Even though her current strength was not enough to completely remove the Saint Realm seal. But at the very least, it could speed up the process of removing the King of Darkness seal. In Old Man Song's words. Which was to say, as long as Yiqing Luo really followed Pharaoh He's method and destroyed the altar, It was equivalent to Yiqing Luo destroying the spirit assimilation array in the blazing cavern, all in vain. From Old Man Sang's mouth, Yiqing Luo found out that the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array was the key to the King of Darkness's temporary awakening. If she directly stepped forward and wanted to forcibly extinguish those burning lamps, she would have already been killed. The King of Darkness would never give her the chance to do so. The King of Darkness wanted to use her. Then, she decided to beat him at his own game and pretended to believe Pharaoh He's words. She approached the lamps and extinguished them. Those oil lamps were known as soul lamps. As the name suggested, it was a lamp that gathered souls. As the lamp burned, the soul would not be extinguished. It was these few soul lamps that allowed the King of Darkness to have the ability to devour souls even when he was sealed in the Saint Domain. Destroyed the soul lamp. The soul was interrupted. The source of the King of Darkness power would also be cut off. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. It was indeed the right choice for her to infiltrate the dark forces and enter the darkness sanctuary. As long as the King of Darkness was heavily injured, no matter how powerful the dark forces were, they would not be able to do anything big for a long time. And during this period of time, it was enough for her to grow to the point where she could rival the King of Darkness. She, Yiqing Luo, had this confidence. You slut! How dare! How dare! Pharaoh He looked at the beautiful face in front of him, and his eyes widened in horror. He and his lord had fallen into this bitch's trap. The soul lamp had been destroyed. How could the lord wake up? Pharaoh He wanted to gather his mental power and cast a hex. But he had just condensed his mental energy. A tingling sensation quickly spread from the center of his head. His entire head felt like it was being torn apart. Pharaoh Crane fell to the ground in pain. He raised his head and smashed it against the ground. This kind of pain made it impossible for him to concentrate. Chapter 1681. Pharaoh He's gaze fell onto the white jade bottle. His expression turned steely green as he roared furiously, "What have you done to me? You, how dare you?" Wasn't the white jade bottle in Yiqing Luo's hands the one which she used to bluff Pharaoh He, saying that it would make the butterfly saint technique follow him willingly? It was targeted at him, a poison which restrained his concentration. Pharaoh He was furious and annoyed, but most of it was fear and astonishment. The young lady in front of him. She was just 15 years old. But she had such a scheming mind. Her thoughts were meticulous and every step was calculated. Even for an old man like him who had lived for more than half of his life, fighting openly and covertly all the way to his current position, he was totally unable to see through what she was thinking. If, right from the start, he had sincerely cooperated with Yiqing Luo, would the ending be different? This young lady, perhaps she really had the ability to destroy the dark forces. Only, there were no ifs. Yiqing Luo would not give him a chance to regret. She smiled as she twisted open the white jade bottle's cap. The white medicinal powder was sprinkled onto Pharaoh He's body. When the medicinal powder came into contact with Pharaoh He's body, Pharaoh He only felt that his entire body was filled with the same kind of piercing pain earlier. Densely, it attacked his entire body. He howled in pain. His body twisted into an extremely strange arc on the ground. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she flicked her finger and the white jade bottle landed on the ground. She calmly raised her eyes and looked towards the altar, losing the illumination of the soul lamp. The entire dark sacred region only had one hanging luminous pearl. The light was extremely weak. As the surrounding sinister cold wind blew, with a thick stench of blood, it filled the air. It made the atmosphere of the dark sacred region even more sinister. A gust of chilly wind blew past in waves. Yiqing Luo remained unmoved. Instead, it passed by the extremely twisted and stiff corpse on the ground due to the pain, and headed straight towards the direction of the silk cloth which was covered with a thin layer of frost for thousands of years. The air was filled with the stench of blood once again. King of Darkness's hoarse roar rang beside her ears. "Vessel, stop. Stop right there for this king." A surge of energy came from all directions. It enveloped Yiqing Luo's body in that surge of energy. A cold and gloomy aura. This made Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly. "Don't touch me." These 3 peaceful words came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Beneath her feet, the profound qi fluctuated and rolled up streams of energy. Countless streams of air revolved around the sole of her feet, entangling together. Bang! The force from the King of Darkness collided with the airflow around Yiqing Luo's feet. The air in the entire Darkness Saint realm suddenly shook violently. At the same time, in Yiqing Luo's hand, a soul lamp which had already been extinguished appeared. When the King of Darkness saw the soul lamp in her hand, his voice became even more irritated. "Vessel. If you dare to do this, this king will make you regret it. I'll make you regret it." His voice was already in a hysterical state. The restlessness of the King of Darkness caused the cold in the air to turn into ice. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? This vessel had repeatedly sabotaged his awakening plan and his plan to remove the seal on the Saint realm. Now, he wanted to completely destroy him. How could he tolerate this? He was the King of Darkness, the king of all living things in the world. Between heaven and earth, all living things had to respect him as the king. However, the commotion in the air was unable to disturb Yiqing Luo's emotions. Her expression was calm as she threw the soul lamp in her hand towards the thin layer of frost. An intense explosion was heard. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.